with some ideas and some things, and then I will jump in at the end with a quick update on what we've been doing on the ground here in Lillooet, and then maybe open it up for some discussion. So with that, Mike, does that sound good? Why don't you introduce yourself too?
Sorry, was that a cue for me to introduce myself? You broke up for a sec.
Yeah, please.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you to Mayor and Council for providing me the opportunity to present to you this evening. As Johannes just referenced, we've been working with the Chamber and a whole lot of other folks in the community and business leaders and other community leaders since about last October, I think. And we had a number of quite a few community dialogues and had a great community forum on April 8th, and had a fairly good turnout and got some really great feedback. So this evening, I was planning on just walking you through some of the highlights of the research we've done and some ideas and recommendations we've come up that we wanted to share with you. So Mayor, should I proceed through the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. I assume, Martin, someone on your team is going to click through for me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So just as we begin, I wanted to acknowledge that the work we did was on the Northern St'át'imc territory, and we appreciate being able to do the research and meet with folks through this dialogue. I also wanted to just share with you a list of the individuals and organizations that we've met. Obviously worked with Johannes and Mara quite a lot. I've met with a number of representatives, including the mayor from the district, and then the Houston Experience executive director. And I won't walk through them all, but you know, Lillooet Museum, the Tourism Association from the Cariboo Coast Chilcotin, and met with a number of provincial ministries just to understand where they were in their work, particularly around land use management in the region, to sort of get their perspectives as it relates to working with the St'át'imc communities. Next slide, please. So don't need to tell you folks that Lillooet has an amazing breathtaking landscape of mountains and lakes, and it's really a gateway to the coastal mountains and Fraser Canyon. There's been many years of passionate and dedicated tourism focus, a lot of volunteer work. And success has been coming to the community and in terms of tourism, but there's more opportunity and more room to grow tourism potential within the community than has been realized to date. Next slide, please. So as I'm sure, excuse me, I'm sure you're all aware, there's been quite a few number of studies going back related to tourism over the last couple of decades, but particularly in 2017 and 2018, there were some really good research reports, and then 2019, there was a strategic plan. 2023, I want to say, or last year, the year before, there was a good economic development study was put together. So we tried, rather than replicate that research, we tried to build on that. I do note that there's, as I mentioned, there's a very heavy reliance on volunteerism in the tourism sector, and to bring the various initiatives to fruition. That has worked really well in a lot of ways. At the same time, I think over the last couple of years, there's been volunteerism has been a bit of a challenge for the volunteers to keep meeting the needs of really what's become almost like full-time positions. And so that has been something we looked at and talked quite a lot with Johannes and Mara about. Excuse me, I have a chest cold as well, so forgive me for coughing. So we've also focused on the economic value of tourism in Lillooet and the region, and worked on sort of some ideas, as I mentioned, and recommendations that sharing what we heard from the community members and community representatives. Next slide, please. So we retained Ed Mansfield, who is a consultant who's done a lot of work on the 2010 Olympic Games and the 2026 Calgary bid and for Destination Canada, and is quite well known. He's a PhD in statistics and economics and has 30 plus years in economic analysis and economic development. So Ed did a economic model for us, looking at trying to understand the economic impact of tourism, identify its role within your community's economy. We thought that would be helpful as part of the work of a report like this, is trying to understand how to create a more attractive investment in climate or investment environment for those wanting to invest in the tourism sector. So understanding what the benefits are from an economic perspective is important. I've also found in my time that having hard economic analysis helps when you go and talk to federal, provincial governments to build support, and it does provide a management tool. And the model we came up with, I think, without a whole lot of work, certainly without any need for future consultants, it can be updated annually or over the however many years you want to do it. Next slide, please. So we've looked at the visitor spend in the community, and the leisure travelers, particularly in the accommodation sector, was about 31% overall. The total, if you look down at the bottom line, was about $9 million in spend. If you look at the various sectors, business travelers, RV campground, visiting friends, etc. So tourism, it's not a particular, the way the economic analysis and statistics produced by Stats Canada and BC Stats is they don't produce a tourism economic indicator like forestry or mining, but they sort of put together a number of what they call economic multipliers. And so Ed went through those and put together this analysis. So you can see it's quite a good overall spend on an annual basis of just over 9 million. Next slide, please. So if you broke down that 9 million by sector, by industry, on the hotel accommodation side, it was around 26%. Food and beverage obviously is pretty close with about 23%. And then, retail is 17, and other, recreation, entertainment, etc. is about 17, or was about 17 as well. So that made up your total spend of $9 million, just over $9 million. In terms of employment, and I think this is a good indicator as well, that it created about just over 102 what we call full-time equivalents, or FTEs. So these are full-time year-round jobs. Obviously, it might be made up of 5 part-time jobs might make up 1 full-time job. That again was dispersed similarly over the various sectors, with about 31 jobs in the food and beverage, 21, a little over 21 in retail, 13, 14 in transportation, and then sort of overall sort of culture, recreation, others of about 19%. Next slide, please. So if we looked at it in terms of the overall employment in the community, it's just under 10%, which is a fairly significant driver. When I looked at some of the other economic employers, really the next in line is, the sort of health and schools and social services, really government employment, and as a regional administrative center. And tourism is one of the few areas where I think the community and the council can have a direct impact on generating more economic opportunity. Next slide, please. So just to summarize, our results show that tourism generates about 100 annual full-time jobs, approximately 10% of the total employment in the community, about $9 million resulted from that. It's an important economic driver, and there's opportunities to grow that. Next slide, please. So I did speak with a number of representatives from the Statlium. I acknowledge that I didn't have as many conversations as I would have liked to, but I drew from the conversations I did have with Statlium representatives and from our research and from talking to others in the community and my background. As Johannes mentioned, I was with the provincial government and was an assistant deputy minister for Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation for a while with the provincial government for about 4 or 5 years. So as you're well aware, the Hoyston and the Teekit Pit House have been successful tourism opportunities. At the same time, some Statlium communities and members are, wary of the potential negative impacts of tourism. And, I assume that to mean more folks out on the land and visitors not being respectful of how they use and how they access the land. At the same time, I think regardless of what, the council or the chamber or other representatives do, the regional visitation is growing independently. There are more and more people moving over the Duffy. I live here in Whistler, and during sort of just around COVID and post-COVID, we've seen a real surge in use of the land base from people, largely from the Lower Mainland, coming up and going up into the mountains. And some of those have been challenging experience, but I think we're learning from that. So from my perspective, I think it's taking a proactive approach to that independently growing visitation has its benefits, and the community and the Statlium can sort of look at that on their own terms and look at what the tourism sector refers to as responsible tourism, and that's people using the land in a manner that works with the interests of the local communities. Next slide, please.
Excuse me, Mike, I just have to say that all our delegations are only allotted 10 minutes. So,
okay. I should speed up.
Well, kind of out of time. So I will see if I can make a motion that we can do an additional 10 minutes, but we've got Johannes and questions too. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, I wasn't aware that I only had 10 minutes, so forgive me
okay.
for that.
Okay.
I'm assuming that folks have the report.
Just give me 2 seconds. Councillor De Bruin has made a motion for an additional 10 minutes, and Councillor Flan, all in favor? Carried. So we can give you an additional 10 minutes, but we will have to cut it off completely at 10 minutes. That includes Johannes and any questions we might have. So, okay, there you go.
Okay, thank you for that, Mayor, and I appreciate the time extension. I'll run quickly through the next few slides. Next slide, please. So there are examples where across the province where the central coast to Kitasoo and over on the west coast of Vancouver Island, where the Hausut nations have used visitation as a way to generate revenue to run their programs, such as their Guardian programs. Next slide, please. And my thought is that in taking what I call a ground up approach of looking at how to combine or work with the Statlium on their interests in the land and land management, and how to bring in potentially looking at the Guardian program as a way to help manage visitation and to work together on that. Next slide, please. In terms of governance, there's been a lot of great work done. As I have heard from folks, there's been some challenges along the way. And so one of the ideas I'm putting forward is that the district look at creating a committee of council that focus on economic development and tourism. Next slide, please. I believe the council is the leader in the community and has lots of opportunity to, and I know you're doing a lot of work on economic development. And these these committees have worked well in Campbell River and Sayward and sort of similar communities, Port McNeill across the province. Next slide, please. Staff housing is another challenge. I won't take up a lot of our limited time on that one. Next slide, please. And I know Jonathan and team have been doing a lot of work, I think, working with the district on signage, so I'll pass through that one quickly. And social media, something that Jonathan and Mara have been working on as well. So I think that brings it to close to the end of my slides. So thank you for this opportunity. This all came at no cost to the community, and thanks to the good work of the Chamber and Jonathan, Mara, for getting this grant from Destination BC and the federal government. So I'll turn it over to Jonathan and Mara.
I'm going to also be really brief. I'm not going to be very long.
Just take me a minute to bring it up.
No problem. I just wanted to, so this was the report that Mike had done. I think there's a lot of really good data in there, and I wanted to bring it sort of to the community and talk about what we have been doing on the ground a little bit, and I'll just take a minute or two on that. But essentially, and then I'll just preview here, one of the big things that has happened is we've started aligning our visions, right? I think we've had a lot of disparate visions over the last couple of years, and so one of our, the slides are called partnership updates. Here we go. So there's a lot of things that have happened to align our visions. And if we want to move through that slideshow, we really started aligning strategic and financial plans of a number of organizations so that we are all working towards the same goals. And it includes Tourism Lillooet, okay. Tourism Lillooet, the Chamber, and the museum as well, the Lillooet District Historical Society. So just quickly going through, I'll just quickly walk you through some of the things that we're working on, right? Tourism Lillooet is really focused on marketing and social media. So, and I can provide this to all of you as well, and trying to enhance our marketing tools and reprinting our physical visitor center materials and supporting the operations of visitor center this year. It's been a big focus, and we've made some really good progress on that. The next one is the museum. The museum also has done a lot of very good work in the last couple of months to aligning their strategic priorities. So the District Historical Society would like to operate the visitor successfully this year, be able to talk about how the season went, to organize and implement structural upgrades to the building, and we have a whole bunch of plans on that, very specific task lists that we're starting to work off, as well as working on our me being as a treasurer, working out administration. We just switched our entire accounting system over to QuickBooks and are now fully set up for that, and as well as digital assets and online presence. And then lastly, just as a chamber, you guys have heard me many times, we equally have aligned our strategic and financial plans with these other two organizations, and we're actively supporting them with their goals, including some of the things that Mike talked about as well. So that brings me just quickly, what are we looking for from council? Why are we sort of talking about this at all? Is, of course, anything that you're interested in tourism-wise, we're happy to discuss and talk about. But there's a couple things that I think would be really helpful in the coming months going forward. One is to get a sense from council, how important is tourism to you? These strategic goals, is this something that you can see yourself supporting? Is this an important economic sector in Lillooet that we can focus on? The other one is making strategic investments in some of these areas. I think when we talk about budgets, especially, it's really important to realize that strategic investments into the tourism area brings an immediate economic benefit to the area, which increases things like property taxes, businesses, and so on. As well as some collaboration with the Miyazaki House. And I know that has come up in the past, and that is one of the items that we're working on right now, that we're trying to finalize. And getting some guidance and direction from council on that would be great. So with that, I'm going to end it. I'm going to turn it over to all of you to talk a bit about what you've heard from Mike, some of your thoughts, and some questions you might have for myself or Mike. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hey, does council have any questions?
And when, that fellow from Whistler there, where he said there's 100 full-time jobs. I can't see that myself personally. Full-time, that's 12 months a year. Is that the, like, I'd like to know where they get them statistics from.
You're on
Oh,
mute
you're on
tonight.
mute.
Sorry about that. As I mentioned when I was going through my presentation, it's not I wouldn't call it when I say 100 jobs, it's not 100 people every day, all year round. It could be in the summer, there might be, 20 people working during 1 week or a couple of 3 or 4 months. But when you add up all of their employment over the course of the year and add up the persons who are involved in the hotel and the restaurant sector, our analysis came up with 100 full-time jobs that could be attributed to the tourism sector.
And what is the average wage on that 100 full-time jobs?
I didn't look at the wages breakdown. I think in the tourism sector and in the accommodation, the wages aren't as high as in other sort of like trade sectors. But I'm not able to give you a specific hourly wage for what the tourism workers make in the community. Others around the table may have better ideas on that than I.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you so much. Good presentation. We appreciate it. And the next presentation is SWIMS. Thank you,
Thank
Mike.
you for the opportunity, Mayor and Council.
Throw that out there.
My slides are coming up that I can get started. Thank you for hearing from SWIMS today. My name is Dave Runpaul. I'm the chair of the SWIMS board. And I'm involved with SWIMS because aquatics is really important to me. It's really important to a lot of people in this community. And I also know, as I'm sure you do, that things don't just happen in small communities. People have to put a lot of time and effort to make things happen. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. I know that the pool often comes up in discussions around budget, and I want you to have a full picture of what's happening in this pool. So I've taken some time with the staff, with some help from the staff here at the rec center to provide some statistics, some numbers, as well as talk about some of the things that we can't measure. And so you have a fully informed view of what is happening in this amazing rec center. And a lot of this is to extend our appreciation as a board. We are very grateful for the District of Lillooet's support of aquatics. And I want to talk about some of that here today. So next slide. So just starting off with some of the things that we can measure. And I don't want to go back fairly long and drown in statistics, but to give you an idea, since January, over 1,000 people came to swim. So 1,000 visits, right? So in each one of those, so if we project that over 10 months, we're looking at 3,000, just under 3,500 visits. And based on the drop in rate of, depending whether it's an adult or a child, averaging that looks like potentially shy of $18,000 in renting. And that should start dropping costs. That's just people coming gophers. That's not including any of the programming, any of the additional usage in the pool. So moving on, and this one's the most important thing for me, is that kids are learning how to swim. Right now, there's 32 kids enrolled in swimming lessons. 32 kids right now are learning how to swim in a community surrounded by moving water. 32 kids are getting lessons, and since 2022, there's been over 200 kids that have had access to swimming lessons. That's not counting the over 125 kids that have come through the schools. And we've had 3 straight years of sold out registrations. So that means they open up a lesson set and they're sold out in an hour. So this tells us about the demand for swimming lessons. People want their kids to know how to swim because they need to know how to swim. And it's not just kids, adults are participating as well in adult lessons and master swims, which I'll talk about. And this one is fairly important to me. I was closely involved with this process over the 2022 to 2024. We had 45 youth and some adults attempt life-saving courses. 14 of them were successful in getting their bronze medallion, which is the first step towards becoming a lifeguard. And of those, 10 of them received Bronze Cross. Now, this is a huge deal because when someone has their Bronze Cross certificate, they can work as the backup lifeguard for a fully certified lifeguard, and the pool can be open. So in terms of staffing, that's huge. And these are people from our community. They started in January with no life-saving training. By July, we had fully certified lifeguards, and it didn't cost them a penny through swims, through the district, and through some really amazing work by community partners to make that happen. And it's not just about the staffing there. These are kids that know how to be safe around water and they know how to save lives. And I can think of at least one example where there's a family very grateful that one of these youth had that training. And that's just so far in the last little bit here. Moving on, of them, 10 of them became certified lifeguards, 5 water safety instructors. This allows them to teach Red Cross swimming lessons. Again, this is a this is a lot of work. It's a lot of work to get this. I think this shows us that the kids want this work, especially teens and adults as well. It's a fantastic job. It's fantastic training. It looks good on a resume. So it's not only developing capacity, it's developing these young people to go into the world. And this is something a point I really wanted to make today because as swims, we've heard a lot of discussion about staffing and aquatics, like any business, any organization right now. Staffing is an ongoing discussion. And I just want to say this really clearly. The team at this pool has found a way to staff this pool. It hasn't always been, we've had our interruptions here and there, but the story that I really want to bring home is that they've had 3 10-month openings, averaging 5 days a week. We've had 10 lifeguards employed, and if you count the school lessons and the registrations, over 300 kids have received swimming lessons. This is really impressive, and I really want to commend the district of Lillooet staff for all of this. It has made a huge impact on families and kids, and it has started to build a bit of community around this pool. And we're very grateful for that. Moving on. And that's kind of just some of the things we can measure. And this is the part that I feel really strongly about as a parent with young children. And that, these are the families that are at home right now making dinner for their kids. They're not in these meetings. They don't necessarily have the resources or the time to advocate. But this means the world to families in January when it's -10 and you have somewhere to go with your kids in this town is huge. I know we can always go outside for most of the year, but those winter months, that pool is an essential service for those families. And it's not just about having something to do, it's having something wholesome that they can grow and connect around. I know of several people in this room, myself included, that had to choose, that chose Lillooet. I'm talking healthcare professionals, teachers, educated professionals that are in those jobs that we need to fill, are looking at our website and they're seeing that pool and they're choosing Lillooet over other places. And I hear this from people all the time when we talk about swims. And lastly is the health benefit. And I'm not going to go on about this, but what it means to our elders and our aging population in this town to have a place to go and keep the weight off and have a non-impact activity. This is huge. There's very few things that you can point to that benefit our youngest and our oldest people as much as the pool does in the same way. And I know that there's plenty that would love to speak on that. I don't know how to move the time here. So I talked a little bit about numbers of pool usage, but there's a lot of value-added programs as well. We've got our master's, Megan's running a master's program People come to that every week. That is for adults who want to learn how to swim laps. There's a lot of adults who want to learn to swim, having that opportunity, and we have the expertise to provide that, and that's really wonderful. Jen Eddy running her learning kayak sessions, getting people into the water. That's where I learned to do my role before going down the Seton. Right now is Tuesday night, so if you were to go into the sauna on a Tuesday night for the evening session, you will find an entire community of sauna users that are in there every Tuesday. They have lots of really great things to say about that sauna. They love it so much that they came up with thousands of dollars to replace that heater out of their pockets because they know that this service is important to them and they know they're not entitled to it. We all got to pitch in for this to happen, and we know that it comes with a cost. I'm sure they would have some lovely things to say. And that there is a shot of our forestry crew coming in doing aquafit leading up to their season. That's a big deal for them as well. And lastly, I'm just going to put a plug in for swims a little bit here. I mean, really, the message I wanted to convey today was how much we appreciate the District of Lillooet for allowing us to be a part of this as a partner in supporting this. But really, this is about the staff here, and I'm really grateful for that work and that expertise that they bring. Just some stuff about what Swims has been doing. We talked a lot about the money we've raised in the past, but I want to talk about the last 4 months. 200 people we paid through grant money to come into the pool. We're paying for 2 grant money, channeling grant money into the pool with 20 kids a week from Stein Valley and Swim to Survive certification. And we thought we'd put $1,000 towards the heater as well. And in the past year, there's some more steps. So right now we're trying to figure out what our future looks like in terms of how we can continue to support this pool. And we're kind of waiting to see what council and mayor council decides and what that looks like moving forward. But, we're kicking around ideas around scholarships, things about recruitment and retention for staffing. We believe that there are some very creative ways that we can continue to staff this pool or support staffing this pool. And we're looking ahead to decide what our fundraising is going to look like and what Swims can continue to do. And so I'll leave and I'll finish off by just saying on my last slide there, one of the points I want to drive home is that this has been really successful, and it's been successful because of the people who have made it successful. And that is a partnership between the district to staff, support from the community and community partners. And I want to see this one more time. They have staffed this pool and they can staff it. And we are looking forward to continuing as a board and volunteering and helping, and we're kind of in a wait and see here of what's needed from us, and we're eager to have that conversation. And and that's all I have. Thank you for your time. I have copies of this if you would like a copy.
Okay, so let's sit down. Any questions? Councilor Gruen. Yep.
Just a question. Are you able to provide all kids swimming lessons that are signing up? Or is there a wait list?
That would probably be a question for the staff for them to act. I'm aware that there's a wait list, but yeah, they've been selling out pretty quick, and their wait listing is shared with me.
Councilor Klein.
And I don't know if this is a Swims question or not. I know that staffing with the pool, I kind of kept track of the schedule over the last year, and it worked out that the pool was only open probably about 20 hours a week throughout the whole year there. I had lots of comments from parents about the swim lessons as to it was a first come, first serve. If you didn't show up in person, you were not getting swim lessons, and there was only a certain amount of spots available. So I'm not sure if that was a district thing for staffing or whether those were swims lessons that were being offered.
I think that would be again a question for you, because the lessons are being provided by the trained District of Lillooet staff. No,
Okay.
If we're involved, it's because we're putting money toward it.
Okay. Yeah, because I know that and the times of those swim lessons did not work out for. They were perfect for parents, stay-at-home parents, or those that are homeschooled, but the ones that worked, the lesson times did not work for people to come in. As I said, I don't know if that was a swims program or if it's a district staffing thing there. So I just wanted to get that one out there because I had lots of feedback about that. And then I had a question on the lifeguards, which I think it is amazing that you are doing this with the kids. I did my Bronze Cross and taught life saving and all of that back in a million years ago. And it was a wonderful thing. What I have heard though is for these teams to be able to help with the swim lessons and all of that, they have to have a adult lifeguard with them. They cannot be lifeguarding by themselves. Is that correct?
So once they have their NL, their National Lifeguard Certificate,
Yeah.
they're fully certified.
They're fully certified
And
even though
we-
they're under 18?
No, they're allowed to lifeguard at 16.
Mhm.
And we've had those courses offered, and we've Swims has paid and supported or shared the cost of bringing in an NL instructor here to offer that for several years now.
Okay, so they can lifeguard by themselves at the pool with no,
And if they're 16 and have their certificate, yes, they can.
okay,
And we have the capacity here to train them in water safety instructor. We make enhanced training. So we have the capacity.
okay. That's all I got.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to 4.3, Jillian Sanders. The Bears.
Get introduced, Jillian. So she is a 20-year expert in the field of bear conservation and conflict mitigation. She leads workshops on how to teach us to improve safety and prevent damage to property and livestock. And her techniques, which are started with grizzly bears, work just as well on black bears. She joins us from Casablanca. Thanks for coming, Jillian.
Hi,
Thanks,
Jill.
Rob. Hello. Am I able to share a presentation?
You should be able to, yes, I've made you a presenter.
Okay, unfortunately, oh, here, okay, great. Oh, there we go. Okay, I'm not familiar with Teams. Thanks so much. Now, is it coming up on your side?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. I'll just start from the beginning. Thanks. Sorry for the delay. I know we have a time limit here. I'll just go ahead. So basically, as Rob has said, that I've been doing this work for many years now. I have a lot of experience with electric fencing, specifically for bears, both black and grizzly bears. And I've also worked to help other municipalities develop bylaws to allow electric fencing for bears within municipal limits. And I'm hoping this video shows for you guys. This is just showing, this is a young grizzly bear who is investigating a chicken coop where the family group of bears had been the night before after killing a whole bunch of chickens and ducks. And then we were able to install electric fencing. And
Sorry, excuse me, Jillian. It's stuck. It's stuck on one slide here. We're only seeing the one that says electric fencing in municipalities at the top.
I'm not sure how to do I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with the Teams. I don't know how. I can see it on my screen, so perhaps it's better if I don't waste time then with the presentation and I just talk.
Oh, it's there now. It's there now.
There we go.
It's working there on the small screen? Okay, well, I'll show this video again and we'll see if it just works from here. So this is a bear just getting shocked after killing chickens and then after the fence was set up. And I'll just go on here. We've identified various barriers to the use of electric fencing, and a lot of it has to do around education. And of course, we can think that we might be able to build something that could keep bears out of various food sources. And then this video of a 10-foot high highway fence with 3 strands of barbed wire across the top. Pretty significant fence. This young black bear is just having an easy time scaling that, as you can see. So moving on towards the need of having electric fencing, I'm not sure if Lillooet allows chickens and honeybees within municipal limits, or if you don't, but if you do, it's great to have electric fencing available to use to deter bears. It's also a wonderful tool to keep bears out of fruit trees, of which I know that you do have quite a lot of. And the next slide here shows what the damage bears can do, of course, to honeybee hives if they're not protected. I have another couple of slides here around safety, different fence designs. There's some temporary or seasonal electric mesh fencing that can be really handy to set up around a couple backyard fruit trees, just for in the fruit season while the fruit is ripe, and to keep bears away from that fruit. Maintaining maintaining the fence is really key. And also we can talk about safety. I know that that's a perceived safety concern around electric fencing in municipalities. I'm happy to take questions about that. Really what we're doing for electric fencing for bears is simply using tools that are manufactured to contain livestock and designing the fence in a way that is effective to deter bears. Around with small children, many people use electric fencing with small children in their backyards and effectively deter bears. And I think that especially for electric fencing in municipalities, there are more and more municipalities in BC which are actually writing into their bylaws, if they have backyard chickens or beehives or small livestock, that they actually have to have electric fencing to deter bears from those things. For example, the village of New Denver, close to Caslow here, allows electric fencing and actually has an electric fence around the school garden compost right on the playground at the school to deter bears from that compost at the school. Really preventing bears from learning how to rip into structures like chicken coops, or even for sheds that people are storing garbage in. Keeping bears out of these attractants actually really increases human safety, because otherwise bears are gaining access to these food sources, learning to hang around. And sometimes bears who are food conditioned to these kind of food sources actually can become defensive of those food sources. And that could potentially pose a human safety risk from the bear itself. Whereas using an electric fence to keep bears away from these things, bears just simply move on to other food sources that are available. And there's the note around other predators as well. Electric fencing can be effective to deter other animals. And yet the fence does need to be designed in mind with whatever animal it is that we're trying to keep in or out of that protected area. So I guess really to sum up, the tool of electric fencing goes along with preventing bear conflicts. Oh, and I do want to give kudos to the municipality of Lillooet, because I understand from Rob that you guys have really done a lot through his work last fall to try and manage bear attractants within the city. And I think that it's amazing. And I want to acknowledge the work that you're doing. And then also to present that this is a really safe, cost-effective, and very efficient tool to help keep bears out of things. And, you know, people want to have the fruit themselves, then this keeps bears away and makes it safer for both bears and people. And I'm sure I have time for at least a couple questions.
Well, thank you for the presentation. Questions? Councilor Kwan.
Jillian, have you worked with other municipalities on electric fencing for? Yeah. So do any of the other municipalities or regional districts or anything, do they have like a sort of a regulation that residents should kind of follow, like signage or fencing only being set up for like your growing and harvesting seasons, things like that, or for like specific fencing, like for the maintenance, or if it's CSA approved?
Yes, definitely. for some of those questions, different municipalities have different requirements around the electric fencing, and definitely signage is one of them, and that's across the board, and I would 100% support that. The design of the electric fence probably would want to be written into your bylaw if you want to specify that. At this point, I think the tool going forward for your council would be to simply allow the tool within the municipality. And then I could have more discussions with Rob and share other information from other municipalities and what they've done. Another municipality that's, you know, I mentioned Caslow and New Denver. There's also the city of Squamish as well, has really good bylaws around electric fencing for bears, and they're promoting the use of the tool within the city of Squamish.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing none. Okay, thank you very much, Jillian. Appreciate it.
For sure. And if there's any other questions that come up after the meeting's over, or councillors and mayor have anything else, please forward any concerns or questions through Rob to me, and I'm happy to help out. And thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Move on to number 5. No public input for hearing tonight. Number 6, adoption of the minutes. Will somebody please move that the March 5th, 2024 regular council meeting minutes be adopted as presented? Councillor McNary, Councillor DeBruin, all in favor? Carried. Is there any business arising from the minute? No rising report. Correspondence. Ask, does anyone wish to remove one or more of the 4 correspondence items under 9.1? Raise your hand. Councillor Plant.
BC Farmers Market letter, please. Number 1. Number 1? Is it number 1?
Councillor DeBruin.
Number 2, update on Canada Community Building Fund renewal.
Okay, number 1 and number 2. The other one? No. Okay, will somebody please move that the remainder of the correspondence items be received as information? Councillor Reid.
Should we bring forward the UBCM membership?
If you want to.
Is it a given?
Nope.
Okay.
You want to bring it forward?
I guess so.
Okay. Will somebody please move that the remainder, number 3, the 1 audit planning letter, sorry, Joni, of the correspondence items be received as information. Councillor Reid, Councillor McNary, all in favor? Carried. Okay. Now reports from committees, reports and presentations of staff. Investigate electric fence for residential lowell. Okay. Thank you.
So, through the mayor, this was staff recommendation. Want me to read through the resolution?
This is a summary.
Just a summary. It was asked to research electric fencing and in order to assist residents in the District of Lillooet with reducing wildlife and human conflicts. There is discussion about how to do it, and pros and cons, not many cons, I must say. And then the staff recommendation is to amend the bylaw to remove the electric current prohibition and to allow electric fencing to be used in Lillooet.
Okay. Any question? Councillor Plant.
I do have a couple here. On the first page here, we've got electric fencing for bears and 8-foot high mesh fencing for deer. What are we calling mesh fencing? Is it like the solid wire fencing, or are we talking the twine-like fencing?
It can be either or. The point of putting it in the recommendation was that make people aware that it does have to be 8 feet for deer. you can't necessarily, or it's not recommended for cost reasons that electric fencing would go 8 feet high. Because that would be a substantial undertaking. So they won't or are unable to jump over an 8-foot fence. So something that is opaque for visibility or aesthetics for us, but something that they can still see that they're not gonna try and climb over or jump over.
That was-
Because they can do a 6 and no 6 foot in no problem.
I was going to ask what transparent meant because that was in there. I do have a problem with the use of the twine light fencing, not the solid metal, because that is harmful to like fawns and deers and everything like that. And to me, what we're doing is trying to persuade them to move on, not actually cause any harm to any of the animals. So if we are putting something in there about wire meshing, I don't know if we can put in there that it has to be wire, not the material like netting.
It can be, any amendments to bylaws can be, tailored to your wishes for sure.
Okay. And then my other question is for, as Jillian said, signage is an absolute must, which is great. Would it be something for us, as I said before, that putting in the bylaw that the electric fencing would only be used for like the growing season and the harvesting season?
They can be designed or installed either way.
Because we're looking at protecting home gardens for people for their hobbies and for food security and everything. And we're not suggesting wire electric fencing for private property, keep out, go away kind of deals.
Right. In residential zones, it can be as small as every apricot tree. Or you can do it in a quasi perimeter fence to do your vegetable garden, 30 by 30 vegetable garden. We didn't include any restrictions. This recommendation is just to allow it. Those specifics can be consulted to the purchasers by either the installers, the retailers, or the manufacturers.
Joni.
Sorry, through the mayor. And to be clear, this is only to amend the zoning bylaw just so that it's no longer prohibited. I would suggest that we would probably bring a policy or a bylaw specific to electric fencing before council, so that you can outline, any of the specific.
Yeah, I wanted to get it out there for food for thought.
Yes.
So then you're suggesting that we then table this agenda item until such specifics come back?
That's a completely separate bylaw. This is just the zoning bylaw right now. Right now, it's just not allowed. Period.
So through the mayor,
Yes.
so if we're now going to allow it, anything will go until we create such bylaw, right? So I would suggest that we table this until we have a bylaw that actually brings specifications to us to indicate signage, setbacks, and other such specifications that will limit the risks that come with electric fencing.
Mr. Taylor?
Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna ask council just to view this sort of as a phased-in project, because somebody may want to start the process. So if we don't open it up now in terms of that you can do it, and we wait for the bylaw, it could be another few weeks or to a month away. So I recognize the comments, from the councillor. This is sort of phase 1 is to allow it. And the next phase for us to come up with some guidelines, because right now there are no guidelines.
So we're just wondering though, I think if we allow it, is there a concern that people are going to put up electric fences any way they want? Because we haven't specified when they can put them up, at what point in the year. all that.
Yes.
Okay, is there a window of opportunity for people to
Abuse it.
abuse this?
That's always a possibility that people will abuse it, whether
Okay.
it's a bylaw or not in place. We know there is some, already some guidelines or policies out there from Squamish and other ones. So we could probably use that as a guideline, as a policy to start the process. And then formalize that when the bylaw comes forward.
Okay, go
But
ahead.
if it's gonna take a few weeks, then why don't we take a few weeks? In order to, and avoid a situation where a homeowner decides now that electric fencing, if we pass this amendment to the bylaw, that they go out and do things that later in the policy is then not allowed. So why don't we just do it properly?
So on that note, Madam Mayor, so that's the council's decision. If you want to table it, fine, of course. And we'll come back, or the bylaw will come back, or staff will come back with some guidelines in terms of fencing to move forward. So this bylaw will change. There will be another bylaw forward with some guidelines at the next meeting, no, not the next meeting, for the next little while.
So is there any way that we could pass this tonight and then just put a pause on anybody actually putting up electric fencing until we have got guidelines in place?
The short answer, Madam Mayor, is no,
Okay,
because it'll be interpreted many different ways by
Yes.
us.
okay. Okay, so do you want to make a motion or, oh, sorry, Councilor Henry.
The mayor, I do believe we have some time with these electric fences, so we can make some decisions. It's not the season for everything to be in town right now, and we're not growing anything. So we do have, if it can be done in a reasonable time within the month, then I think we can make this decision properly.
What does that look like, Zach?
Sorry, if I could just add one more
Yeah.
thing. None of this would come into play until the bylaw is actually adopted, so it still has to go through public input and everything. What could be done is, first two readings, and then we hold it until there's a policy or additional bylaw that.
I knew there was a way. There had to be. Okay. Got a hand up? No, okay. Any further questions, comments? Councilor DeBrey.
But just to that point, typically when we have first, second, and third reading, then it would say in the motion, but this resolution is just to amend the bylaw. And with amending the bylaw, electric fencing would become allowable or no longer prohibited. And so, like I said, I think if it's going to take a couple of weeks, indeed, as Councilor McNair said, I mean, no one has a dire requirement right now to put up a fence. We can wait a few weeks until such specifications about setbacks and signage and CSA requirements and other things that power and that sort of stuff can be addressed. And because then we can have one public input, one discussion with council and get everything done instead of having now a discussion about part of it and then when it comes back again, another discussion.
So, Madam Mayor.
Motion to postpone?
Yeah.
Making a motion to postpone this
To table.
until.
I'm making a motion to table agenda item 11.1.
Okay. You gonna have that? Any further comments, questions? All in favor? All opposed? Okay.
Be good to get it done proper to begin with.
No, once we get to discuss this.
Mayor, I think it, like if council had no appetite for any of this, then there's not a whole lot of point in staff spending a bunch of time developing a new bylaw. So understanding the point for sure, and we're happy to do it.
Okay. moving on, 11.2. Grant funding applications for Red downtown revitalization and infrastructure.
Dan or who's speaking? Side.
She looks like she's ready.
Sorry, just for the grant or for the
Not yours, Dan.
Great to see you though. Okay, anybody else?
I
Okay.
through the mayor. This is when Lori Reimer was here speaking to council just the other day. She was speaking of these couple of grant opportunities that were coming up. And this is to get council support for the grant applications. The downtown vitalization and infrastructure would support sort of the implementation of the various, I forget what they're calling them, module standalone projects that come out of the downtown vitalization plan that's in progress right now. So council is not approving any specific project at this time. It would just be support for a grant application to be able to move these forward when the report is done and council can see the specific projects. It's more of a timing thing. The grant application has to be done before possibly council may approve the final downtown vitalization plan.
Okay. Questions, comments, or staff? Councilor DeBruin?
Yeah, and just I guess as a clarification, so we're submitting a grant application for $1 million, which is awesome. For downtown revitalization, but our downtown revitalization phase 1 project hasn't been finalized such to a point that we have actually identifiable projects. But this grant application, we have sufficient information for the grant application to put it.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Will somebody please move that the council support the District of Lillooet's application to the Rural Economic Diversification and Infrastructure Program for a grant of up to $1 million for actioning the completed downtown vitalization and infrastructure plan, and that the district commits to funding up to $200,000 or 20% of the project. Councilor McNary, Councilor DeBruin, any further questions or comments? All in favor? Carried. 11.3, grant funding application support Mizaki House project.
Again, through the mayor, this was the other one that Lori Reimer was speaking of, a few grant application opportunities that are upcoming for the Miyazaki House. And I just want to stress that, like she spoke of leveraging and using the 400,000 grant from the Japanese Canadian Legacy Society. I have not received final notice that that grant has been approved. My understanding from speaking with various Lori and Laura is that everybody's pretty confident that it's going to be approved. But if it was not, and council decided to support these grant applications, potentially the district could be on the hook through all that leveraging that she was talking about for $350,000 in leveraging funds. Having said that, should that grant funding not go through, and then now we're responsible for this, we probably just would not apply, period, and bring it back to council. Or if it was past that point, we would turn down the funds and bring it back to council.
Okay, so what you're saying is if they did not get the grant, that it would come back to council before we were on the hook for the 350,000.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or comments? Councilor McNary?
So that actually means, like, we're not sticking our neck out we are a little bit, but not 100% off of it for this $300,000 that we would be accountable for.
Correct. It would potentially say that other grant was not approved, and this comes back to council, and council says, no, we still want to do it.
Thank you.
Sorry, Councilor DeBruin.
I did want to make a comment, in these agenda items that come forward to council, and I always think it's great, staff indicate the municipal goal that is being served by this agenda item. And in this case, it says invest in sustainable infrastructure, which this goes to a Miyazaki House, and technically a house is infrastructure, but I think the better characterization of this of the goal that is being served is economic development and tourism related. And so coming back to an earlier delegation from the chamber asking or inquiring about the district's commitment to tourism and economic development, I think this is a pretty good show of the district's commitment to economic development and tourism development, as the Miyazaki House is one of the prime tourism attractions in town. I think the municipal goal that's being served is a bit broader than that feeling.
Okay. You read 1 and 2 separate?
Please.
Yes, okay. Will somebody please move that council support the District of Lillooet's application to the BC Heritage Legacy Fund's Heritage Conservation Program for a grant of up to $50,000 for the Miyazaki Heritage House Rehabilitation and Storytelling Project, and that the district commits to funding up to $50,000 of this project. Councillor DeBruin, seconded by Councillor McNary. Further questions? All in favor? Carried. And will somebody please move that the council support the District of Lillooet's application to the Northern Development Initiative Trust Cultural Infrastructure Program for a grant of up to $300,000 for the Miyazaki Heritage House Rehabilitation and Storytelling Project, and that the district continues to fund the annual operation, maintenance, and upkeep of the Miyazaki Heritage House, and that the district commits to funding up to $300,000 or 50% for this project. Councillor McNary, second by Councillor Reid. Questions? Oh, you got a further question?
I just have a further
Okay.
question. Sorry, I just want to get my brain around this. So we are saying here that we're committing funds up to 350,000 for this project. But if we don't, should it not say dependent on grants, on receiving grants?
Mayor, so it doesn't say that because we don't have that grant yet, so it wouldn't be an acceptable resolution for the other grants.
Okay.
It has to be committed funding. Again, if that funding falls through, then council's gonna have to decide how different they want to move forward, if at all.
Just want to get that clear.
All the questions, all in favor? Okay, 11.4 project update downtown vitalization and infrastructure plan. Oh, there you are.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I'm here to just provide a brief update on the status of that vitalization infrastructure plan project. In addition to the staff report that was prepared, 2 documents were attached to the agenda, including a project status report, which was prepared by the consultant towards the end of January, and just for interest, the results from the community survey from the fall. And then I received some additional information just this morning, which has been added just for council's information. You don't have to look at it now in detail right now, but if you have questions, we can bring back further information at a later meeting. But they include like the master project schedule, which sort of outlines their kind of a plan from last July, I think, until September when they're planning on being finished. A list of potential funding streams that they've identified and a SWOT analysis for the project, which is like identifying strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats related to developing that sort of downtown core area. Just to let you know, the project is moving along as scheduled with a planned completion date for this September. According to the sort of master schedule, they're currently in the kind of investigations and studies portion of the project and is drafting of these sort of modules for specific projects. They're engaging in a needs and depth analysis and have been in discussions with various district staff about the contents of these modules, budgets, priorities, as well as grants and funding. They have identified several preliminary kind of investigation studies that they are recommending the district budget and complete before waiting on like the big $1 million grant or whatever that looks like. These include items that would need to be completed prior to any major infrastructure works, such as like a survey of the downtown area, or a study assessing the current condition of what are, the sewer and stormwater lines, like what is their current condition that costs money to look at, as well as geotechnical and archaeological work. Other next steps include following up with the Ministry of Transport. We did send them like a pre-application submission, kind of get their feedback on, because it is a potential highway, and what the kind of options were. So some follow-up is needed there because they haven't formally replied to us yet, as well as engaging with the Saltlian Nation regarding potential archaeological work and cultural representation, and seeking out, again, these funding opportunities. So many grants require a finalized project plan and the approval of matching funds before the district can apply. So because the plan is not complete, there may have been some grants missed in the last little bit or will miss in the next sort of few months. But McElhaney is helping staff identify current and future opportunities as some grants you may be able to apply for with kind of a draft plan or a planning process rather than a complete plan. So they're kind of looking for those things. They can't apply for grants, but they can, the grant applications, from my understanding, need to come from the district, but they can support. So after these project deliverables and modules are drafted, there's going to be further public engagement planned, as well as they're going to help put together a draft implementation plan. And lastly, just letting you know that our new Director of Planning and Development, Jamie McEwen, is going to be taking over the role of sort of the staff liaison on the project between us and McElhaney. But there's also like public works and finance departments are involved as well. So in summary, the project is on schedule, and if there's questions, I can do my best to answer, but if there's specific things that we don't have right now, or if you need information, you want more, just the question, we can prepare additional information for a future meeting. And I'm happy to accept any questions.
Okay, Councilor McMahon.
Is McElhaney coming to the table now for applying for this grant? Like, are we getting what we need out of McElhaney for a grant writer to address their grant properly?
Through the mayor, I believe so. Like they're doing. There was a kind of a contract for what they were. But yeah, they are putting stuff together, and it's just kind of all in the being worked on stage. And I said there's like it's kind of in the midst of discussions with staff on like what the structure and the budgets, and kind of all just a working process. But as far as I can tell, yeah, they're doing
what we need them to do on time. Okay, thank you.
Councilor DeBruin.
Through the mayor, so when you say it's on schedule, whose schedule is this?
through the mayor, it's sort of the project schedule, like when so the whole project is being paid for through grant money, and again there's this sort of contract that sort of outlines what the project is going to look like, and it was always sort of planned to take I think about 1.5 years. So they were always planning on sort of having these deliverables completed by this September. So just kind of pointing out that they are sort of on track but this was kind of developed at the beginning of the project, is what we thought the timeline was gonna be like.
Because just as a follow-up, I mean, it is, and I don't want to offend anyone, but it's just $125,000 project. That's not a lot of money for this. So I don't understand why, like, looking at, we're in March, and basically they're working on a module development, which is the shovel-ready projects. Can we ask them to put some more resources to it just to get this thing done before the summer, or like, because then we can, if there are grant opportunities that come by, then we have it already. So I don't know exactly what the why is taking so long.
Through the mayor, so this did go out for RFP, and the former Director of Corporate and Development Services has signed a contract with McElhaney, and part of that contract includes a schedule of deliverables. So they are following what they signed. We can certainly ask them if they can speed it up, but it may cost more.
Okay, thank you.
I thought this $1 million grant we're going for was supposed to be in May. That's September. Has this got anything to do with that $1 million grant?
Potential. And that's where I said it's kind of a matter of timing, where we may have to have a grant application in prior to the final report being complete.
But we will have enough information where we can put a grant application in.
That is my understanding, yes.
Can we find that out for sure?
That is what they have said,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Question is, the water and sewer pipes. Do we know, through our own information, how old they are on Main Street? I know.
Through the mayor,
It's just so in the back.
We know that through the mayor, that we know that the water line in downtown is iron, is a galvanized steel, and it does need to be replaced. There are a number of water leaks that it could potentially cause catastrophic failure, so it is an imperative that we replace that water line soon.
Okay, and the sewer pipe?
We don't know exactly because we didn't camera in that area, but given the age of it, and if we do work underground, before we ever resurface it, we should do the sewer line. So this is our one chance to do the sewer line too.
Right.
So we should do the water and the sewer before we resurface.
Okay, so would that be enough to leverage that grant as a project, just knowing that? Like for the $1 million?
It would certainly help, but it's hard to say depending on what the criteria for the grant is.
And I'm sorry, I'm not a grant writing expert, so I can't speak to the.
It's part of the project evaluation. I understand that.
And the last thing I want to just request is that any information that you get from McElhaney, if you just share it with the rest of us, because they're, we keep ahead of the game and make sure that we are applying for all the grants that we can possibly do.
So I would say, Madam Mayor, that's the engineering to do the quarterly report on the particular project.
Would appreciate that. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Yes. Will somebody please move that the project update dated March 12th, 2024 on the downtown vitalization and infrastructure plan be received for information? Councilor DeBruin, seconded by Councilor Plan. All in favor? Carried. 12.1 amendment to bylaw notice enforcement bylaw BNB.
Thank you through the mayor. So with council adopting a new garbage collection and regulation bylaw, of course, our schedule of fines no longer matched all of the sections and headings and everything like that. So this amendment is to align the reference sections of the bylaw in the schedule of the bylaw notice enforcement bylaw. Way too many bylaws for one bylaw.
Way too many. Thank you. Any questions on the bylaw? Okay, seeing none, will somebody please move that bylaw notice enforcement bylaw number 2021-002, amendment bylaw number 2024-005 be introduced and read a first, second, and third time. Councillor Weed, seconded by Councillor Plant. Any further questions? All in favor? Carried. Okay, 12.2, council indemnity and expenses bylaw. Fine, any further questions, comment? A total question? Okay, will somebody please move the indemnity and expenses bylaw number 2024-004 be adopted? Councillor McNary, seconded by Councillor Reid. Any further questions? All in favor? All opposed? Notice. 12.3, Z24-001 zoning bylaw amending bylaw number 2024-006, aligning provisions with OCP policies and electric fencing.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So just, I know there was some back and forth on the electric fencing thing. Just to clarify, so the current prohibition does come from the zoning bylaw. So because we were going to be proposing to amend that, that's part of the amendments being brought forward, but planning staff thought there'd be a good opportunity to make a couple other changes aligning with council goals of reducing barriers to development. So I understand that you may decide to defer this whole amendments until later, but I still appreciate the opportunity to just run through what we're proposing.
Okay, please do.
So the brand new zoning bylaw is still on the horizon. Their new director of planning and development is going to be helping facilitating its completion, but right now there's still no firm deadline or timeline for that project, other than ensuring the district meets the new provincial housing legislation requirements. So the proposed amendments to our current zoning bylaw fall under 4 categories. So the first was the electric and deer fencing, which was going to propose to increase that max height of the sort of transparent deer fencing from, the details, from 2 meters to 2.4 meters, which is at 8 feet. Removing the direct prohibition against using electric current for fencing, as well as adding a provision stating that electric fencing will be permitted for the purpose of protecting farms, food gardens, orchards, livestock, or bees from wildlife, and a further provision stating that the fencing must contain warning signage. So the signage, like that's what we're proposing, how to change it without any further regulations. Just to add to that before I move on, I'll just point out that there are lots of communities that don't regulate electric fencing at all. So it's up to they don't say it's not allowed, they don't say it's allowed. And includes communities like Merritt, Clearwater, 100 Mile, Fenton, Cache Creek, Lake Country, Trail, and Nanaimo. There are some communities that allow or prohibit electric fencing in specific zones only, such as Penticton, Ashcroft, and Oliver. And some places specifically permit and encourage its use, like Euclid. Context there. I haven't seen any zoning bylaws that have specific regulations on like setbacks or timing. Not to say that we couldn't do that, but I haven't seen examples of that. But maybe Jillian would help identify those for us. So just moving on. So the second category of amendments proposed is around minimum lot sizes per subdivision in the rural zones. The OCP contains specific density guidelines for parcel sizes in rural areas, which are currently in conflict with our older zoning bylaw. Typically, you update your OCP and then you update your zoning bylaw to be in line, but we just had a sort of a delay that hasn't happened yet. Staff have received several rezoning applications related to subdivision proposals where the minimum lot size proposed is in line with the OCP and as such supportable by staff and possibly council, but does not meet the current zoning bylaw. It means they have to rezone before they can subdivide, which is a bit of a barrier to development. Well, it's tying up staff time. So specifically, the minimum lot size in the RR2. Oh yeah, you just want to pop the, I just was going to pop the zoning map up. I know it's can't really see, but the RR2 is the dark orange. There's not a ton, but it's kind of a larger rural residential lots. So the proposing lowering the minimum lot size per subdivision from 8 hectares down to 1 hectare, which is what the UCP says. In the RR1, which is the light orange, kind of like farm, Pine Ridge road area. We're proposing actually a small increase from 1,750 square meters to 2,000 square meters, which is just aligning with sort of a provincial best practice minimum lot sizes that are on septic but have access to water. And then lastly, in the agricultural and rural resource zone, which is the light green, in line with the OCP, proposing to change the minimum lot size for subdivision from 8 hectares to 2 hectares on properties that are not in the agricultural land reserve, but keeping it at 8 hectares for properties that are in the ALR. The other amendment proposed is just adding duplex as a permitted use in the R1 zone. It's currently allowed in R2, RM, both the rural residential zones. I'm not really sure why it was excluded from R1 in the past, but we just give another option if somebody wanted to build more units on R1 lot. Just kind of more in-town stuff. It's light yellow, but it's not very well. Lastly, the last proposed change has to do with changing the front setback for accessory residential buildings in the 2 rural residential zones only, so R1 and R2. The current zoning bylaw requires accessory structures to be built 3 meters behind the main dwelling. So this was brought up last fall by staff, but council supported keeping the rule in place for the more urban, smaller lot zones like R1 and R2, but did express potential support for changing that rule for the larger lots, more suburban rural neighborhoods. So we're bringing that back, suggesting that it's going to allow more flexibility for people that may want to site a carriage house or a workshop where it's not necessarily right behind the house, maybe their house is in the back. And just so you know, I had to inform several people that they would need a development variance permit if they wanted to avoid or if they wanted to site their house in the front. So removing that just restriction does, in my opinion, reduce the barrier to development, allow more people more flexibility in their accessory structures. So to conclude, staff recommend approving these proposed amendments. Had staff recommend that the zoning amendment bylaw 2024-006 be read first and second time and a public hearing be scheduled. But that said, the current bylaw as written does include the electric fencing information. So another option would be to either strike that out and let the bylaw carry on, or just defer the whole thing until more regulations are brought forward.
Could I ask, would it be beneficial to have the public hearing at least scheduled first, or could we do that?
So through the mayor, if council wants to avoid the electric fencing part of this and defer that for later, I would suggest introducing, giving first reading, amending to remove 2.6, 2.7, 2.8, giving second reading as amended, and then it can go to public hearing or public hearing.
But then if you're going to public hearing and you're stripping this out, then your public hearing is not about.
Correct. So you're zoning. Yes.
Councilor DeBruin.
I have a question. Good, that's a question, yeah. So with regard to, the minimum lot size for subdivision, so you speak about the AGR zone, and reducing that from 8 hectares to 2 hectares for lots outside the ALR. There are a number of lots within our district that are partially in the ALR and partially out that are AGR. How would this be applied in those split zone lots?
Yeah, through the mayor. I believe if you have any section that's within that does contain ALR land, then you would be considered in that sort of ALR category. That's not to say you couldn't apply for like specific rezoning, but any property that has ALR land, like the ALC has to approve the subdivision. So it's just kind of being clear that like the district has sort of one rule for land that we kind of entirely have control over subdivision size, by recognizing that if you do have even a portion of your land in the ALR, then there's this separate kind of approval process needed. The Agricultural Land Commission has to be involved. So yeah, they would be considered, the 8 hectare minimum lot size would still apply.
So as a follow-up, so if I have a property, 100-acre agricultural property that is zoned AGR and 1% of it is in the ALR, then I would have to do a submission to the ALR to subdivide it, even if the ALR portion wouldn't be subdivided at all.
Through the mayor, I have not been involved directly with subdivision applications involving the ALR, so I actually would say I'm not 100% clear on the process. So I don't want to give you an answer yes or no.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to step in. I think it's a very good question. Maybe something you want to ask our Director of Planning Development when you see him next.
Okay.
But if it's urgent, I'm sure that Christina can get an answer for council sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Mayor, I'm totally confused on this because we had the electric fence one, which we put aside, and now in this one, we have about the height of the fence and about signing on electric fence and whatnot. So why would we do it again on the other one? I'm just, it's like we've got 2 people doing the same thing in my head.
Right.
So the bylaw officer was just giving you that background that council requested on the possibility of using electric fencing.
Right.
To do that requires an amendment to the zoning bylaw, which is, Christina is speaking to the whole thing, but really she's only speaking to that electric fencing because it's part of the zoning bylaw, not because it was part of her recommendation. But we can easily remove that from this bylaw amendment if council wants to.
Okay, through the mayor, but what I'm saying is, why would we remove it when it says must contain warning signage and that the fence may be increased to 2.44 millimeters? And I'm like, is that not what we're asking the other one to say? Is that not what you were requesting, Councilor DeBruin?
So in removing, if I asked to have a mover and a seconder on the bylaw, but removing 2.6, 2.7, and 2.8, would that suffice the electric fence part and move on with the rest of the OCP policy change? Oh, and hands go up.
I thought why we amend or we put this on the table, the electric fence thing, is for this very reason that we needed some rules and we're trying to make some rules here. So it's not making sense to me why one come before the other and we had no rules to begin with, and now we have rules and now we're gonna amend these rules to to get some more rules that we were looking for earlier.
Because we tabled the other one, that's what I'm saying. We
Yeah.
tabled it because we didn't have any guidelines. And this has guidelines, so why would we take them out?
Number one,
Personally, I'd like to see this all deferred and separated for the, yeah, I'm confused as to what we're doing here, but to separate from the fencing from the other one. And I really want a copy of that current zoning map because that will make a lot more sense to me for some of these areas that we're wanting to change.
To address the concerns and perhaps some of the discussion on electric fencing. Electric fencing is not a benign deterrent. And while it's not life threatening, it can be life altering, both for humans as well as for pets. And that is the reason why I think it is pertinent, particularly in residential areas, that more specifications are given to electric fencing, including setbacks. If I have a property line that neighbors my neighbor, and I put electric fencing on the outside of my fence towards my neighbor, is that good practice, right? While they may have kids and dogs and that sort of stuff running around in their yard, but now looking at an electric fence. On top of that, electric fence, while we're moving it from the bylaw, it's not defined anywhere in our bylaws. So I could string up 220,000 volts. And that's an electric fence. Technically, it's an electric fence. Electric fences, wildlife electric fences need to be specified about, currents and amps, and I'm not an electrician, so I have no idea. But, there are certain things that are allowable as a wildlife deterrent and are not. And I think it is good practice to be able to define what we consider to be a viable electric fence to protect our crops. And can it be on the property line, or is there a setback? Can we provide provisions that, you cannot protect more than 60% of your property by electric fence, or is it 30%, or how big do we feel that vegetable gardens are or chicken coops or whatever? I think those are the discussions that I'm looking for as we are talking, not about electric fencing on agricultural properties. And I'll admit, forbearance has an electric fence around the entire perimeter. And that is because we are a commercial farm protecting our crop. It is zoned to agriculture. So, but when we talk about residential neighborhoods, wherever in town, I think we need to be a little bit more pertinent in just, while this just would allow it to put a few signs up, and I can tell you, dogs can't read signs. And so, like I said, that's the reason why I suggested to ask staff to come up with a number of guidelines around electric fencing in residential neighborhoods.
okay, I want to go back to Councillor Weed and ask her if she would like to make a motion.
To do what?
I know, that's like your, like, motions were.
Well,
That comes
I
back.
hate to defer it because I'd like to see it go to public hearing, but I'm still really, I feel that if this came forward first, that maybe the other one would have went a little further than it did, I guess. That's where I'm sitting. Because it doesn't go into its specifics, but it does go into some of the specifics about height and about warning signs and those sort of things. And so that's where my confusion comes. Because we were tabling the other one because we wanted more information on heights of the fence and warning signs, and I get the voltage thing, and I get that dogs can't read, neither can cats, but they think they can. And I get all that, but in this one, it's here. So it just, I don't know, am I the only one confused here? Or it seems convoluted to me that if this one had come first, we may or may not have put the table the other one.
And through the mayor, totally understood. And we actually had this exact same conversation as we were trying to get everything together. And unfortunately, it's because the council procedure bylaw says that's the order it goes in. Aside from that, might I suggest that both this and this whole zoning bylaw amendment be deferred for the next meeting, where Christina can just bring forward those amendments, excluding the electric fencing, until we can bring more information back to council. I'm not sure that we'll be able to get it in 2 weeks.
I would like to make that motion, just defer it.
Okay.
And that's
So
the door.
we'll second that motion. Is there any further questions or comments?
Then,
Yeah,
sorry,
go ahead.
I had a question, because it was earlier suggested just to remove, or
2.6.
to put it into first reading and then remove 2.6, 7, and 8, so that the remainder can go forward. Is staff suggesting that we do not do that?
That was my original recommendation. It didn't get a motion or second, so I was giving another alternative.
And it's already been first and second, so I'm just gonna call the vote to defer the whole thing. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 12.3, sorry. Just confused. Excuse. Okay, 13, work in progress. I think that's to be discussed April 9th. That's correct. Okay, any notice of motion? To the council roundtable. Okay, it's been a busy month, but I'm just going to touch on a few items. February 28th and 29th, I attended the SLRD, where I presented the ask letter for support for our rail car above car transportation from Lillooet to Vancouver from the board of directors, consisting of area A, B, C, and D, Squamish, Whistler, and Pemberton. It was approved unanimously. And should this council want individual letters from each community, you can just let me know, and we can have staff send that request out as well. So that's how we're working on financials there too, and it was estimated that Lillooet's share of the SLRD taxes for search and rescue, 911, the Lillooet landfill, Council TV, the library, and economic development would increase this year by $49.06 per household based on a 500,000 assessment. And part of that increase was for search and rescue for a drone costing $17,472. And economic development for Lillooet agriculture costing $34,250. However, Director Vivian Birch-Jones at the back of Area B is going to pay for both of those entities. The drone as a one-time purchase and the agriculture this year only. I've asked that Lillooet Agriculture do a community engagement as well as council engagement before we add that amount to our tax base for next year, and just let council know what's going on and what that looks like. So again, the amount that taxes will be increasing now for the SLRD portion is $23.06 per household based on an assessment of $500,000. So I just want to reach out and say thank you, Director Birch-Jones, once again. We really appreciate it. And also wanted to thank Councillor Weed, my alternate for the Indigenous Court steering and taking my place on ceremony March 13th. It was sorry to miss it, but it didn't be helped, so it was much appreciated. Thank you. Councillor Groom.
I apologize, I don't have anything specific to report, other than that council has been collectively very busy with budgets, and interviews for a new CAO that has come to us off the streets for most evenings and out of the bar.
Some of them on the street.
I'm ditto on the council. Next.
Same answer.
Okay. Yes, you and I guess the mayor and I were the only two contributing here. Yeah, lots of budget meetings and CAO interviews. March 13th, I did attend the formal opening ceremony at the Indigenous Court in Lillooet. We are now the 9th municipality to have an Indigenous court. The court is every other month, and it takes place in the Better Living Center because our courtroom is not large enough. Interesting concept. You have to be Indigenous to go to Indigenous court, and you have to have a prosecutor's agreement to participate. And the very interesting part for me was there's no plea bargaining or anything. They have to plead guilty to the offense, face their person that they offended. And I just thought, wow, like, why is not every court like that? They did have a young fellow there that was graduating from Indigenous court the next day, and he was there with his wife and his 2 little girls, and he was so proud that he did the work and actually, yeah, I think he was 18 months doing the work, but you could just see the difference in him. And I don't know what his offense was, didn't ask, just congratulated him. On March 15th, I did a Zoom SILGA meeting. We had a lot of feedback on the forestry webinar that we did. It was great attendance for it and a lot of pre-screened questions. We were going to update our strategic plan, but did not get to it. The registration for the Kamloops Convention is at 188. Last year's convention was at 263, but we're pretty sure that that was because there were so many new people that were elected that everybody wanted to be there. The Community Excellence Award winners were announced at that time. You'll have to wait to find out at ABC. The resolution committee, which I'm a part of, is taking place on April 8th, and we have gone from 3 resolutions to 47. So that should be a really long day. We're trying to come up with a sponsorship policy because I don't know if anybody else has heard, but one of the counselors somewhere in the Okanagan has put forth to UBCM that we no longer have Fortis or any of the urban music people be sponsors. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so that was very interesting. And this afternoon, I met with Constable Saran, and I'm going to call him Constable Saran because I have no idea how to pronounce his first name, from the Lillooet RCMP detachment. And he's in charge of media relations, and I believe there was supposed to be the newspaper, Dennis from the newspaper was supposed to be there, and I believe a couple of people from various surrounding neighborhoods, and it ended up being he and I. I did get some information. We presently have 5 constables, 1 corporal, and 1 sergeant stationed here. They're on 4-year postings, and then they're moved on. That's the way the rural areas work. In total, they have had 2,700 open files, including Lytton, and 2,100 of those files were Lillooet. 250 of those were property crimes. You didn't go into details on any of the others. We are getting a rail truck. It's been approved. There's just no timeline on when it's coming, which would work out great if there's any evacuations or anything I'm seeing. And that was the end of my day, I believe.
Okay, CAO report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My pleasure. today, I want to recognize Christina's efforts with the Jamie. They did interviews for the planning, temporary planning clerk, and we really well. So I've asked Jamie to make a quick decision. So I hope this week we'll have a temporary planning clerk. I have to say that Christina's not here. It's unfortunate. She's done really stellar work for us the last 6 months with no director. And so we gave her opportunity for her to be on the interview panel. But as you know, she will be leaving you for the next little while soon, any day now. So it could be 12 months, could be 18 months. But I found it to be a pleasure to work with. She's a tremendous asset to the district, big time. Considering she had no experience in municipal government and no experience in planning, she's really picked up really quick. So I'm hoping that for the district that she does come back, but she's ready to come back. The fire chief recruitment is still open. It closes next Friday, I believe. And that's my report at this time, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, media and public question period. The meeting is.
Sorry.
What?
The new business.
Oh, right. New business. I didn't write it down, so I skipped over it. Okay, new business.
We're all
You'll
thinking
take
that we could go home early.
Okay. Okay, let's go with, number 1. BC Farmers Market letter. I can't remember who pulled it, but just give the page number.
44. Yeah, I just wanted to bring this forward. Last year, the BC Association of Farmers, with their nutrition coupon program, redeemed $10,689 worth of coupons at the farmers market. This year, the program redeemed $16,731 worth of coupons. So that's over $6,000 more coupons presented compared to last year, which is an increase of about 64%, which is a huge increase. The program is benefiting the lower income residents, but it's also infusing additional income for our local producers here. The figures show it is a dramatic raise. So I would like to direct staff to send a letter of gratitude and support for the program to the Honorable Adrian Dix, BC's Minister of Health. But that's huge, a 64% increase. I'm making that motion, please.
And Councillor Weeb is seconded. Questions, comments? All in favor? Great. Okay, can I do these all? Do I have to do them individually, or can I do this by now? Oh. Okay. Just do them separately. Are you on to number 2, or are you on? Okay, go ahead.
Can I make a second motion to send a similar letter to the Lillooet Agricultural and Food Society and Lillooet Friendship Center, a Community Cares Food Bank, to thank them for their efforts in executing this program and bringing nutritious food from our local farmers to those that need it.
Good idea.
Might you be able to share that motion with the people on this table when you have a chance? Just the wording.
So you could just do a blurb.
I think there was 3 organizations that I've never heard of before.
If you can just tell me the organizations again, sorry. I couldn't-
Lillooet Agricultural and Food Society. I believe it's one single organization. It's called the Lillooet Friendship Center / Community Cares Food Bank. I believe the food bank is operated by Lillooet Friendship Center.
Okay, and Councillor Kwan, did you second that?
Yes. Total agreement.
Right. Okay. 2024, 0306, update on Canada Community Building Fund renewals.
Yeah, just a question for staff through the mayor as a clarification. So this $164,741.96 of the next community works fund. This is in our budget, I would assume, and is this what is called typically gas tax?
Yes, through the mayor, yes, yes, and they just changed the name.
Thank you, that's all.
Okay, motion to receive. Councilor DeBruin, Councilor Plan, all in favor, carried. And number 4, 2024-03-12 UBCM membership. Councilor Plan.
I don't know why I brought this forward. I just want to know, is this something that we'd like is just an automatic thing? Okay,
Yes, if you want to still go to UBCM and such, then we have 2 members.
okay. I just wanted
Yes.
more clarification. Okay.
Motion to receive.
So-
Okay,
So, question, I mean, like I said, I mean, this is just for process. But this is just an invoice. Typically, we never, the council never sees invoices, so, and it's, exactly, it comes in as correspondence, not as a agenda item, so there's no decisions. So,
Yes. Through the mayor, it's simply a transition amongst staff, and what gets added as correspondence.
As long as it's in the budget,
what's that?
as long as it's in the budget,
Yes.
which it is.
Yes. Okay, motion to receive, Councilor Plan, second by Councilor DeBruin, all in favor, carried. Okay, now we will go on to media and public question period. The media is open, or the meeting is open to questions from the media and public. Seeing none? Will somebody please move that the March 19th, 2024 regular council meeting be adjourned? Councilor McNary, Councilor Weed, all in favor, carried.
We could have at the end just a staff question period. This is staff.